Hi everyone, I'm Jacob Mills. I'm in the KVCC culinary program, and today we're making lobster risotto, one of my favorite things. I'm super excited, so let's get into it. Alrighty, first things to know about with risotto, it's made with arborio rice, which is a more grainy and dense rice. It absorbs water better, it absorbs liquid better, and that's why it works really good for risotto. It's slow simmered in a really flavorful stock, and then you add proteins, vegetables, pretty much whatever you'd like. So first things for a risotto is you want to have a really flavorful stock. So right here I have fresh lobster stock that was made this morning. Cook off the lobsters and deshell them, clean the shells, and then you add mirepoix, which is carrots, onions, and celery. And mix that and let it simmer for a few hours. It builds flavor, and you want to kind of let all of that balance together. And then that's going to be the base of the risotto, where most of the flavor is going to come from. And then here I have garlic butter. This is going to be our poaching liquid for the lobster when we finish towards the end, and you'll see that later. Alright, so first thing is turn on the range. Have all my mise en place right here. It's super important when you're cooking really anything to mise en place is to gather, to assemble everything you're going to need and kind of have it all together in one place. That way you can stay clean, stay organized, stay focused. First things we're going to do is take a little bit of butter. And then I just have some blended oil. Let the pan heat up a little bit. The aromatics of my risotto, besides the stock, is going to be, I have some fresh minced shallot, and then I have some freshly minced garlic along with lemon juice and parsley and some herbs. But the base is going to be the shallots. I'm using a little bit of oil with the butter. That way the butter doesn't brown and burn, because then it's going to have an unappealing look. So we'll let this heat up. One of the first things that I've learned in this program that I hadn't learned before, that I've probably used the most, is risotto. It's one of those things I learned the right way to cook it here in our first year, and since then I've fell in love with it, and I make it all the time. You can do, there's endless amounts you can do. You can add meat, vegetables, you can do sweet risottos, you can do savory risottos, you can do seafood. Nothing better than Maine lobster in a risotto. Alright, so we can start seeing some action coming in the pan here. Gonna let these kind of sweat down. You don't want them to brown. You just kind of want them to become translucent and let the flavors kind of break down. Another thing with risotto is you want to make sure that your stock is warm. You're making warm food, you want to keep the stock warm. Let these sweat down a little bit, and then we're going to add some garlic. Let these flavors combine. Just these two flavors alone, onion or shallot with garlic and then a little bit of butter and oil, it's like a match made in heaven. It smells so good. And then as these work down, next we're going to put in our arborio rice and some of the chopped lobster. You can use, it's really up to you, the amount of lobster you want to have in the dish. I cooked off 3 lobsters, and I saved some of the toppings, the claws and the tail, and some of the knuckles for the garnish on top when we're done. And then I chopped up the rest of it, and that's going to be incorporated and cooked into the risotto with the rice and the garlic and the shallots and everything. Lobster. You want to saute the rice into the risotto before adding any liquid, but you don't want to brown the rice. It almost kind of opens up and releases a little bit of the nuttiness of the rice when you heat it in the pan first, and then you want to add the stock, your liquor, your deglazing liquid, and then your stock and everything after you've sauteed the rice in just a little bit. My deglazing liquid, I'm going to use white wine. You can use any of your preference. Typically, if I was doing seafood, I would do a white wine or a sherry. A sherry wine would work really well. A lot of times I'll go back and forth. I'll do sherry or I'll do white wine in my lobster risotto. But today I chose the white wine. I love the flavor that it brings. It's a little sweetness and it's fresh. And when you mix that with the freshness of the risotto or of the lobster, delicious. Add in your wine. That's going to deglaze it. It's going to release all the fond and all the flavor that's kind of connected and stuck to the bottom of the pan. All that's going to be released when the liquor hits, and then that's going to combine into the dish and create a lot of flavor. It's another very crucial part of risotto is you want to have a good deglazing liquid, whether it's wine, whether it's lemon juice, whether it's any kind of deglazing liquid you have. It's really going to show through when it hits the rice, and when you taste it at the end, you'll be able to taste the wine, and that's good. Helps you build flavors. I add a little bit of green in the beginning and save the rest for later just to get it to incorporate in. And right now, there's just the wine in here. There's no stock or anything left, or yet. Around. You can smell it, the wine with the garlic and the shallot. It smells very good. Another thing you've noticed is probably that I'm wearing gloves. Always wear gloves when you're doing ready-to-eat food. So any food that you have that is going to be eaten or is not going to be cooked any further, you always want to have gloves on when you're serving it. I also wear gloves a lot just when I'm cooking because it helps keep my hands clean. It helps keep everything clean, especially when you're not right next to a sink and you want to just make sure you have clean hands all the time. It's a great use for that. All right, have my hot stock here, and then you're just gonna go ladle by ladle, slowly through the cooking process and let the risotto kind of work together. It typically takes 45 minutes to an hour to make a really good risotto that's well balanced, well flavored. And before that, you have to make the stock homemade, ideally. That really is where your flavor is going to come from. This lobster stock right here tastes just like the ocean. It tastes fresh, and that's what you want when you have fresh made lobster. So we're just going to go ladle by ladle. You add stock to your risotto, kind of let it simmer. You don't want it to boil. You don't want it to get too hot. It's slow. With a slow process, it's a steady process. You have to trust the process, and then in the end, it'll all be worth it. So this is going to simmer. We're just going to keep adding ladle by ladle stock. Turn this one on. Start heating up our poaching liquid. You don't want to add more stock until it's just about fully absorbed with the stock that you already have in there. Now, while we wait and let this simmer, I'm just going to turn it down a little bit so it's not getting too hot. While this is simmering, one of my garnish elements is going to be some scallion olive oil. So here I have some freshly sliced scallions that I just have in some extra virgin olive oil, and I'm going to immersion blend them together. So the oil is going to have a green color, and it's also just going to have scallion essence that it's going to give flavor, it's going to give color, it's going to give vibrance. It's going to be great. So we'll take our oil here. We have our immersion blender. I'm just going to cover it with a shield. vegetables. They're super versatile, and they're simple, but they have a really nice color and they give really good flavor to whatever you put them in. So this is our scallion oil. And I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna put it in the squeeze bottle, so that way for garnishing purposes at the end, it'll be a lot easier. It's a nice vibrant green color now. It's gonna be great for the risotto at the end. All right, you can see the stock has incorporated and the rice has already soaked up a good amount of it. We're almost to the point now. We're gonna add some more. And like I said, you have to trust the process. It'll take a little bit of time, but it's worth it in the end. All right, this is our olive oil, our scallion oil we're gonna save for the end, and that's gonna be a garnish element. All right. And now, 45 minutes later, we have almost finished risotto. So the stock's been cooking through this, it's been incorporating. You can see the difference. The rice it's a little bit bigger, it has more volume, it's thicker. All of the flavors have been, incorporating in the stock. The stock is now the risotto, essentially. And then the next step, once you get it to a nice al dente, which means slightly firm still, you don't want the risotto to be turned into mush. You want it to still have a little bit of bite. You want it to still have a little bit of crunch, but obviously not an unpleasant amount of crunch. And all of the cheese and the liquid and everything that's going to be added in at the end, it's going to kind of all play together. And when you have a little bit of crunch left in the rice, it balances out the flavor profile and the textures really well at the end. All right, so now I'm just going to taste. It's one important thing when you're cooking anything. Always you want to taste. You want to see where you're at. You want to see where your flavors are. You want to see how much longer you have to go. And the only way to really find out is to taste. Yum. I'd say the rice is just about there. So now that the liquid's been incorporated and all the stock's been incorporated, to finish it, we're not going to use stock. We're going to add a little bit of cream. That's going to give it some creaminess and kind of balance it at the end before we add the cheese and all the other finishings. Here I have 3 ounces of heavy cream, and then I'm just like I've been doing with the stock, just going to add that in, mix it in, and let it incorporate. It's also going to give it that creaminess, that color, that what you're looking for in the end. It really helps balance it. Poaching liquids coming up to temperature. Let this risotto finish up and finish incorporating all the juices, and then we'll add the finishing touches to it. Right now, I'm going to take our lobster. This is going to be the lobster we use for the garnish on the risotto. I'm just going to put that in the poaching liquid here. As I said before, it's unsalted butter. I always use unsalted butter to control the balance of my salt and my flavors. Unsalted butter with some garlic and some fresh herbs, some parsley, and that's just gonna poach the risotto, poach the lobster, bring it up to temperature. It's been cooked already, so we just have to bring it back up to serve safe temperature, and the butter and the herbs are gonna kind of give it more flavor. See the rice coming together here. Now that the cream's incorporating it, it gives it a really nice color. This is going to be our finishing touch plate. We're going to finish the dish on. Turn my stock off now that I'm done with the stock. Keep an eye on the lobster as it's poaching. The next step in the risotto to finish it, very crucial, is butter. Everybody loves fat. Fat makes everything delicious. It's going to give it kind of that melt in your mouth feel. So we're gonna add butter, and then probably the most important at the end is fresh Parmesan cheese. It's gonna give it the stringiness, that ooze that you want. And I also have a little bit of freshly squeezed lemon juice. That's gonna give it some citrus and some tang. It smells so good. All the flavors are just combining, and it smells amazing when they combined. And we're just about there. You don't want it to be super, super dry. You want it to have most of the liquid incorporated, but you don't want it to be super dry. You want it to kind of have a little balance. Lobster meat is ready. Scallion oil. Then I have some fresh parsley for a garnish as well. I'm gonna add in 2 tablespoons of butter. Microplane and grate in some fresh Parmesan. Everybody loves a good Parmesan cheese. And that's the best final touch to a good risotto. You can use other cheeses as well. Something preferably salty, kind of tangy, that's gonna give it a good punch. All right, I'm gonna mix in a little bit of green, and then we're gonna get ready to plate this. Go ahead and put the risotto in the bottom of the pan. We're going to take our poached lobster. I have a slotted spoon so the butter will drip through, but we'll still have the lobster. It's going to go right on the top. Some green. And then finish it off with some fresh parm. Always keep my edges clean. And then we're going to use the scallion oil, last touch, around the rim. And there we are. Beautiful lobster risotto.